Thanks for writing down the motion. Start. Do I need to wait for this? All right, guys, welcome to the 7th preliminary round of Banding UAD 2018. In this round, proposition we have DLSU 1, opposition NSU 1. My name is Tony, I'm from China. I'll be chairing this round. I'll let the training judge introduce themselves.
My name is
Okay, the teams picked the motion in this house regrets the popular portrayal of individuals with mental disorders as creative geniuses. Without further ado, I will call upon the Prime Minister to start this debate. Here you go.
The rising popularity of individuals with mental disorders being portrayed as strange or quirky or people or creative geniuses also created a fetishized narrative. Because if you take a look at it, the respect afforded to them in that form of media, the respect afforded to them even in news, for example, is on the basis of their contribution. The focal point of their story is their outcome and their groundbreaking ideas and contribution, and never the struggles of a regular individual with Asperger's, with autism, with ADHD, and things like that. These come in the form of films like A Beautiful Mind or The Theory of Everything, or even in the coverage that they get from news outlets, right? This results to those narratives being the only thing that people see and being the only form of representation that these people get, given that it is dominant. Our stance coming from Affirmative is that in retrospect, we regret the dominant portrayal of these individuals as genius individuals solely for the reason that they have mental disorders. But secondly, we think ideally what this portrayal would look like would be humanistic, genuine, and inclusive. So that means there's plurality in their narratives. It's not just one end of the spectrum, the exceptional end of the spectrum that we celebrate, but we celebrate all types of people with mental disorders, right? So that means you can have the stories of the Stephen Hawkings, of Sherlock Holmes, and those geniuses, but there's also those who aren't. We also give stories of those who have more struggles and more realistic and human-like struggles. Our goal is to have value, as to have these individuals' value detached from their utility, detached from their contribution, and for the expectation of society and their parents perhaps to be realistic and not the pinnacle of success for these people, which are Stephen Hawking and geniuses like that, right? Two arguments then from Affirmative. Firstly, on how there are inherent and pervasive harms with what has happened, right? No, firstly, what do mental disorders look like, right? Because we cannot assume that just because you have autism, you're all of a sudden a math genius or a science genius. There's a spectrum of the gravity of it. There's also a spectrum of their intelligence in that. So there's also a spectrum of outcomes that they could have. So we think the geniuses are exceptions. So it inherently excludes, or that narrative inherently excludes those who don't fall into that category. But we think secondly, a dominant portrayal means that it is the respected narrative. It is the ideal and credible narrative and it's the only story that people see. But we think even those stories are something that's selective. If you take a look at those films that are released, the books that are released, it emphasizes the great outcome and contribution that they had and nothing else. We think that that story is what has become normal, and that's therefore something regrettable. How then have people reacted, and what are the 3 harms that I'm going to emphasize? No, thank you. Firstly, on the child, because growing up, inevitably, we do peg our identity on other people that we relate with. Like if I'm a woman, for example, I will idealize a woman in politics or whatever job I want, things like that. So we think the way they determine their self-worth will be based on what they see is ideal and what society says is ideal. And unfortunately for them, not all of them can become creative geniuses, and we think they're bound to fail themselves and to deem themselves as worthless if that is pegged as a standard. That's why we think the dominance of it is so bad. We think there has to be a plethora of other narratives that tells them that it's fine if you're not a creative genius, that your parents love you even if you're not, and that there are your own things that you can do and contribute. Secondly, it affects how parents raise their child, right? It comes with frustration on the child if you as a parent expect a math genius, for example, because your child was diagnosed with autism, right? You have unrealistic expectations. You have ideas, for example, that the child has failed. We think that in recent history, there has been an increase in parents trying to get their child into Mensa, which is an organization for creative geniuses with mental disorders. That goes to show how parents attempt to have their child feel respected or feel important by being part of a prestigious institution. We think that leads to 2 outcomes. The parent thus pressures the child and says that you have this mental disorder. So many people like you are geniuses because of this disorder. Why aren't you? So we think that creates frustration from the parent and creates an environment that's not conducive to a proper life growing up as a child. But thirdly, on the effects of society, right? We think firstly, if you aren't a genius, you're therefore just someone mentally impaired and just that. You're seen as a burden. You're seen as a burden to your parents financially, on their effort, and things like that. But secondly, even in media, you are diminished as a comic relief. Take a look at Sheldon in Big Bang Theory, where his mental disorder isn't fully exploited in the narrative of that show, but it's only at the outcome of it, and he's only seen as a comic relief in that. But lastly, there's no value in you unless you do something groundbreaking. So you never see a celebration of children or of people with mental disorders who didn't do things that Stephen Hawking did. It's only the geniuses who are ever celebrated. Yes.
I think in the absence of such a narrative, these individuals would have been ridiculed a lot more. You can't just assume that in the absence of this narrative, they would be included within your society.
So that leads me to my second argument, right? I'll respond to that within that. Secondly, we think we prefer a world without that popular portrayal because our alternative is pluralistic and realistic, right? So that means if you don't have a dominant narrative of this, there are 2 possibilities. The first is that there will be more narratives. So you're not a genius, you're probably just a regular person. So it'll show that child going to school, perhaps being bullied in school, and how he deals with that, or how his parents deal with that, and things like that, right? Except that we think the struggles of the child and the parents show the normal life. So it attaches a value in the child intrinsically and not a value in the child for how smart he is or for the outcomes that he has. But secondly, given that there's no groundbreaking contribution from the child, it's a more humanized perspective. If that child didn't create the next best technology, for example, we think it's more relatable to people. So in our model, the spectrum is seen, so no stereotype is built. That's similar to, for example, why we regret the singular narrative of women in the media in the past. Like they're no longer just housewives and demure damsels in distress now. They can be powerful women, they can be in the military, and things like that. We think the expectation is also normalized. The conclusion to this is that people have no automatic assumption about you, and respect is attached because you are human and not because you're someone who is smart or a genius. But even on the worst case that we do have no portrayal, and this is also in response to the POI, right? We think that in a world wherein all of a sudden, and this is highly unlikely, that you get no coverage and no movies about people with mental disorders, we think there will still be a narrative driven by the field of science and technology, because they're primarily the ones who attempt to aid in those disorders, right? So we think at the very least, it's more accurate. At the very least, it doesn't glorify one end of people within that spectrum. So ultimately, we think we prefer this world because this is, we think we regret the world or regret the narrative that has happened because it ultimately ultimately has led to people respecting these individuals on the basis of utility rather than the basis of their humanity.
Thank the Prime Minister for the speech. So in the case for the opposition side, I will call upon the leader of opposition.
It's okay, they're not Indian. They share water with us. Not my first time.
We'll just not file an equity about that.
Can't joke about that on live stream either.
We're leaving evidence, people. All right, leader of opposition.
Art has always played a role in guiding societies. Thoughts and notions are something that are formed by art. Why? Because the viscerality that it has is uniquely different from any other form of narrative that exists out there. The likelihood that you'll be more receptive to a visceral connection that you feel to a lyric that touches you, or an image that moves you and is imprinted into your brain, is always far more relevant than relying on niche people to relate to scientific literature or technical discourse, or relying on the benevolence of people to assume that everything around them deserves a reception that's derived out of nuance, that's derived out of introspection. These things don't come out of people organically, but needs a certain push. And art tends to be that link between not thinking about it and thinking about it. That's why the relevance of art is extremely important in this debate. And the viscerality that it has to play, and the role creative geniuses play to create that viscerality, is extremely important as well. I think that's a part of the debate they don't do. This characterization will be really important related to most of the argumentation I do in this debate. The end goal they want to achieve is the end goal we will show will not be achieved, but rather will worsen in status quo. When we show you plurality and representation will suffer on your side. Because understand, the thing in reality is that if we want to do a realistic debate like this said, then you also have to assume the pragmatism of the real world exists, and there's a big overwhelming force which needs a counterbalance. The thing with this pragmatism is it exists in many suppressive ways that act as a counterbalance to all the achievements you want to achieve. Their desired outcome is everyday depiction of mentally ill people just being themselves or being bullied and so on and so forth without any extra edge or extra layer to their characters. Why is this important? Because already in society there are multiple overriding factors. Here's 7. Number 1, the idea that depression is a luxury that only first world people can have. So if you're a child in Bangladesh or if you're a child in India, depression is not something you're supposed to have because you have to worry about more important things. Secondly, the idea that productivity and depression are not correlated. So the idea that someone has a 9-to-5 stable job, but that automatically means that he or she cannot be depressed and there's no nuance to their life. Thirdly, the idea that no one else is like my child and no one feels mine or my child's pain because of the lack of representation or the lack of any sort of glorification of mental health out there pushes these people into like a lonesome field where they feel a sense of otherization. And number 4, on otherization, they completely disregard the existing visceral discourse that exists regrettably on mental health, where there are so many people out there who regrettably start to debunk things like mental health and saying that it's not a priority, that we should be prioritizing different things. The people who victimize and bully these kids who are not just high schoolers, but also people from different generations who think this is a luxurious problem, who think this is a snowflake problem, and carry out bullying. And lastly, the idea that under their world, there should be no journey to celebration of these people or no journey to how that plurality breaks through spectrum and instigates all of these people into thinking a different way, which I think definitely is a burden for a team that vouches for better representation and better understanding of mental health. And lastly, I think something really important is the idea that a regular person is not a narrative that goes viral. At best, your narrative results in this person being perceived as a victim or being perceived as a weaker element of society on the verge of being bullied or on the verge of being different. But at worst, it does nothing but simply say they're just another person who has no special needs or who needs no special guilt from society to offer protectionary measures. And that's extremely dangerous. Before I move on to implants, which you lacked, what's your view?
Given those harms, why then must we celebrate one dominant portrayal of the exceptional ones rather than
I think that's the crux of this debate, right? We think the thing is that it's not this narrative versus that. It's the idea that there already is an overarching sad perception around mental health of being weak, of being defenseless, of being otherized, of not needing to be prioritized, and being a certain way, especially when you're perceived that way by dominant generations or dominant mediums. So that's why another narrative also needs to exist as a counterbalance. It has to shift you into thinking about the nuanced perspective of mental health as well. And this is where creative genius and the benefits of art that I described plays an extremely important role. Why? Because understand that in your culture, when you're dependent on needing an extra push from literature, an extra push from pop culture to think a different way, the work of these creative geniuses plays an extremely important role. We don't think the spectrum is as extreme as parents seeing Stephen Hawking and saying, oh, my kid needs to be Stephen Hawking. Because it's very clear that's a 1 out of 100 person. But it's on the other layer. The more common forms of depression, the more common forms of bipolarism, the more common forms of schizophrenia, which many artists undergo and feel as part of their pain. Their work acts as a voice for all the other people who feel these tendencies and shame themselves and are shamed by society for feeling these tendencies. So they need to cover these up when they don't have any relatability or any sign that this is a problem that others also have. It's not just about telling them that you should be in a support group with other weak people, but letting them see that strong people who are doing strong things are also bringing their plight into the world for these misfits. When you label their work as sick, it denotes the stories and connections they feel are connections and stories of sick people, not connections of people who are also a large segment of your society. And that doesn't account for plurality. So teenagers who are depressed lose their source of angst, relatability of everyday darkness when the Linkin Park songs that they grew up listening to are labeled as music for crazy people and music for people who are deviants. But we think we live in a culture where all sorts of people listen to that music, but certain people relate to it more, and the gravitas affects them. And that's extremely important and something you shouldn't compromise. And next, the idea is that it allows for the spectrum to exist. We see the likes of Marcus Trescotty, who was the captain of the England national cricket team, one of the most prestigious positions you can hold in sports. He was seen as an innovator in his field, but at the same time, he suffered from extreme mental depression. So that sort of narrative helps break stereotypes and shows you, one, it can happen to anyone, so you should always be aware and look for signs of things like that, even in people who work 9-to-5 jobs, even in people who achieve tremendous success. And secondly, art tends to connect generations and make people aware of these problems. So parents who grew up listening to Nirvana and Linkin Park also know that suicidal tendencies or depressive tendencies are things that can exist, are things that maybe even they themselves became a bit conscious of when they heard that lyric or they saw that image. So they're open to talking about it with their kids, and they're open to having this idea exist in mainstream discussion. When it extremes in mainstream discussion, the ability to break homogenization of culture is extremely prevalent. Because right now, anything that under your work is described as a misfit culture and something that should be derided. Now we don't just succumb to a basic culture of basic problems for basic people, but that new subcultures like emo subculture, like death metal subculture, like genius subculture exist. And these are things people opt into, and these are ideas that gather discussion and gather virality and are pushed forward by science and tech who explore these subcultures, who explore nuances, who learn new things. So science and tech looks for more nuance in our world. And lastly, in my last 16 seconds, and my science speakers will explain this further, people have a propensity to label others. The reason people don't call Serena Williams a nigger out of spite is because she shuts them up with her athletic ability. We think in our world, we allow all of these people to also have safeguards, also have heroes, and have that safeguard against labeling as well. That preserves a better perception of mental health in our world and also allows for the same benefits you're looking for of nuance and plurality. We're extremely proud to oppose.
I thank the leader of opposition for the speech. I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue this debate. Thank you.
Sorry.
Here.
We say that viscerality is not the best way that we should portray mental illness. It is not just something that you can sing away and all of a sudden all of your blues are gone. It is a deep-seated feeling and a deep-seated experience that you are crippled daily and you experience daily. And can range from things like depression to the other contexts presented by Prime Minister like Asperger's and autism, things that weren't responded to by the previous speaker. I want you to note how unresponsive Leader of Opposition case has been thus far. They only wanted to talk about the value of singers with depression and seen as creative geniuses. One that does not respond to our case regarding like how we portray people like Asperger's, like Sherlock Holmes, or highly functioning autistic individuals like Sheldon Cooper. So we think that they need to respond to that. But second, we think that if this debate is about, even if that they are correct, that this debate is about singers with depression, we want to say that this is also bad in itself. One, we say that the viscerality in itself does not mean for like exploration or deeper exploration. If the only source of literature, for example, in popular media are songs, we say that songs don't always show the clear image of what they go through. So we say that because of the viscerality, it does not go for an in-depth analysis or an in-depth experience of what these individuals go through. But we say that even if it does, what it does is it creates this narrative that despite your depression, these singers were able to do X, or I as a creative genius was able to do X. What does that mean and why is that harmful at two levels? One, it says that depression is something that holds people back. We say that there are so many individuals who are able to live with that depression or live with their mental illness, not seen as a negative attachment to their life. It is just something that exists. We say that the negative depiction of it as a thing that ought to hold you back is inherently harmful. But second, we say that for individuals who are not able to cope the same way that singers and other creative geniuses are able to cope, are seen as less valuable or feel that they inherently are less valuable. Why am I not able to write my songs because I'm depressed? Why am I not able to make a good painting because I am depressed? Never mind, it doesn't take into account the specific skills that individuals are able to have. But we say that this whole depression incident is less important compared to the majority of the portrayal in movies and television in which you have mental disorders that are underanalyzed, such as Asperger's and the such. Please sit down. What is the second thing that I want to talk about? That we need to talk about how society treats these children given the popular portrayal. And this is jumping back into the context that Prime Minister set in this debate. We say that in society's minds, there are an established expectation of what mental disorder looks like. And this is because of Sherlock Holmes, that you're so analytical. Or it could look like Sheldon Cooper, that you're funny, but you also have some quirks, but you're also a genius in astrophysics. We say that disorder becomes equated with you being a genius, such that when society and individuals or children meet someone with the same line of disorders such as like autism, but it does not meet what's in their head as a perception of what it ought to be, there's a disjunct between the reality and the expectation of these individuals. Why is that harmful? We say two levels. Note how the disparity in itself is weaponized. And the first is in outright aggression from other people. That if you are not like Sheldon Cooper and you are not smart, you are automatically stupid and you are automatically someone that is less valuable than what we see on television. And we see that when people say that, you know what, you're not like Sherlock Holmes, that you don't have any value, we say that that means for the child or the individual that they are less valuable in society because they're not able to achieve the same thing. But the second level of this is not, if it's not by direct aggression, it's by forms of microaggression, such that when you simply ask a child, so is your autism somewhat like Sheldon Cooper or like Sherlock Holmes, means that the child is forced to reevaluate what they ought to be versus where they are now. That insofar as they are not able to think like Sheldon Cooper, that simple question of form of microaggression already makes them create a life that is in comparison to people that are seen and perceived as society as what they should be able to achieve versus what they're unable to achieve. In conclusion to my first extension, we say this is so harmful to the development of children, also as argued by Prime Minister, not responded to. We said that these children end up growing up like feeling frustrated about themselves, about how they're unable to achieve things. And this leads to worse things like depression, because these children now have a mismatched perception of what they should be able to do and what they're currently able to do. We think that mismatch leads to worse cases of depression. It could even lead to like taking away of life because it's an unrealistic portrayal. Why is the comparative better? Because children are no longer going to ask, are you like Sheldon Cooper? But it could be like, oh, Are you is your autism like an alternative, like pluralistic portrayal of how your parents struggle or how you as an individual struggle in the daily life of your mental illness? We say this debate therefore does not revolve just around depression, but other forms of mental disorders. Yes.
In a world where, say, someone like Chester Bennington doesn't do it, it is done by some straight white male director who has never suffered from the illness in the very first place. So what is your alternative?
One, there's nothing wrong with like a straight male director. Like they also go through mental disorders like every other person. We say that it just calls for like alternative sources of that. They need to prove that it's only white males who talk about this type of problem, when women that can be directors at the same time and people of color. So it doesn't make sense. So last extension, we say that the portrayal and status quo are divisive and are exclusive. There is a hierarchy that is created of who is more human, such that your humanity for these individuals are attached to what is seen in movies. Why is this bad? Two levels, because your utilitarian value as a creative genius is attached to what people are fed in the street. So maybe if it's about depression, it is your capacity to create music that, if for some reason, forgives you being a depressed individual because you can make music and that's your value. But second, we say that it excludes individuals that aren't creative geniuses. It makes it harder for individuals on the ground to draw an empathy link or compassion for them when there's a mismatch between their expectation and reality. We say this leads to the worst cases of otherization that opposition says. And this is two forms of otherization. Either that society pushes you to the edges because you are not that creative genius, or that it creates like an otherization from yourself because I am not a creative genius. I do not have a position in society. We say that the fact that the entertainment industry in itself treats them as a freak show that needs to be laughed at or create entertainment value. We say that viscerality creates them as exotic beings that deserve like some entertainment rather than as human beings with dignity and gratitude and heavy and big problems. We say that the predominant portrayal is inherently problematic because when these individuals are distilled to the entertainment value that they provide, as shown on popular portrayals, or the degree of creativity that they're able to produce, we say that removes the attachment of an intrinsic value upon these individuals, but rather just recognizes them for outputs that some may not be able to create. If this debate is about otherization and where to make a more inclusive society, we say that the popular portrayal does not do that, and we're proud to regret.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for the speech. To extend the case on the opposition side, I will call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
I think by their logic, I think every orphan should be expected to be Batman, right? And I think like their case that every individual with mental health disorder is going to be expected to be extremely genius is not true, right? Because first, I think people realize that it's a depiction, right? And in movies and whatnot, it's extreme dramatization that essentially makes them like be exaggerated to a large extent, right? But even if that was true, I think it's better than the alternative that they hint at, that they never discuss. Like, panel, look at your notes. The Prime Minister tells you we would have been okay with the alternative where it shows the everyday experience, a kid being bullied in school, a kid coming back and showing resistance. I think first, it shows that every child needs to show resistance towards bullying to begin with. So the outcome is still of one of empowerment that essentially pushes individual to be stronger. But moreover, I don't think that kids, like parents would be like actual adults looking at Sheldon Cooper would expect their children to be like Sheldon Cooper as well, right? Because like I don't think as to like parents are the ones who are the closest with their children to begin with, right? They've seen their children grow and they know the particular qualities that the children have, and it's much less likely that a parent who knows that a kid with special needs would be asked to be asked to do something that they're not comfortable with because of the connection that they have. But moreover, I think it allows these kids to come up and have a better, it's still better for a kid to be asked in school that, hey, are you really good at maths, instead of being ridiculed in school. Because guess what, in a society without with the absence of the label of creative geniuses, these individuals would have been ridiculed. We think if they expect kids to go to school and say, oh, your autism has plurality, guess what? Kids don't even know what plurality is, right? We think you need kids to have a discussion in which they can include these people, not because they're funny, not because it's fun to bully them, but because they are individuals with some sort of self-esteem, right? We think it's much better when you dignify these individuals and understand that, okay, they might be geniuses in their own way, and which is fine, right? But moreover, we think the idea that this exaggeration is bad needs to be challenged as well, right? Because first of all, we think it's extremely important that you realize these individuals, because of this narrative, have been able to tackle a lot of harmful narratives to begin with. What are those harmful narratives? First, I think they have been able to compensate that, look, Chester, with all the ability, with all the virtues, whatnot, was still depressed, which is to say the depression hits me even harder, right? Depression for me is even tougher to begin with, and it's not a luxury, which is to say that individuals with ability being depressed makes it seem that individuals who are not as talented can go up and say that it's not a luxury and it happens to literally everyone, which is to say society's ability to now cope with the depression of everyday individual increases, because you realize that if a powerful individual, if an individual with a lot of faith can go through this, a normal individual probably goes through this even worse. What am I going to tell you? I'm going to tell you as to why the exclusion that they're talking about at best is one that includes, actually includes people. I'll also talk about why it has created a safe space for a lot of individuals. What did Fatima tell you, right? He comes up and tells you that, look, the labeling that is contingent on ability has created a safe space for a lot of women, which is to say that calling a random person the N-word, right, is not applicable for, say, someone like Serena Williams, because you acknowledge their ability and you acknowledge the labels on them, right? Which is to say that if an individual with mental disorders is said to be extremely talented, this label of creative genius helps them put up a resistance, makes them make sure that they have a safe space in which they won't be ridiculed, make sure that they have a safe space in which they're valued for their ability, right? Which is to say that for a lot of women, they don't want to be in the workforce to be known as just a token woman in the office, but rather an accountant who has a value to begin with, right? We think that this is much better for individuals with a lot of mental health issues, right? Why is that so? Because we need to prove as to why they would have been ridiculed to begin with. To which we came up and said that, look, this is not a motion where you can come up and say that, look, a lot of directors in cinema are now women. A lot of directors in cinema are queer people, right? We think it's a retrospective motion, right? It's a regrets motion, which is to say that within the 90s and 2000s, where directors such as Harvey Weinstein were the majority, white cisgendered males with no sort of mental disorders, where the majority, they would have made the movies from their own lens, from their own gaze to begin with, which is to say that their ability to relate to individuals with a lot of mental health in the 90s and in the 2000s, where individuals did not even have a conversation about mental health, where individuals did not understand mental health to begin with, would have been minimized, and all the movies, all the songs, all the creative depictions would have been of individuals that would have not accommodated creative geniuses, which is to say that once these individuals, such as Sheldon Cooper and whatnot, such as Chester Bennington, came up and said that, look, these are our perspective, and our music, our shows are a culmination of our darkest hours. It helped individuals understand mental health better. We think status quo would have been much worse in a world, if the narrative would have been hijacked by individuals who hadn't gone through this experience. Yes.
One that's very uncomparative. You want us to defend a world where no discussion happened at all. I think that's not a reasonable verdict. But note how under your side, the access to your safe space has requirements of your contribution to society.
No, it doesn't have, it doesn't push you to contribute towards the society, because first, if you realize Chester with all the contribution and all the famous people with all their contribution went through mental struggles, you probably go through it like a lot worse to begin with, which is to say that you're allowed an even safer space, because individuals realize that mental health can happen to anyone, and mental health doesn't require you to like do something extremely creative, because individuals understand that these are depictions, these are exaggerated, and we think like the alternative is much worse. Like they have given you no alternative whatsoever, right? We have told you so how they would have been ridiculed. Because imagine Big Bang Theory without Sheldon being a genius. He would have been a joke in the show to begin with, right? We think our ability to make fun of individuals who are different from us, our ability to make fun of an Indian in a show who struggles with talking to women, right? Our ability to make fun of individuals who absolutely have not gone through our culture and our cultural aspects is extremely high, which is to say that the easy targets within these shows would have been individuals with mental disorders, the individuals who can't cope with the society, who can't talk to women, who can't socialize with anyone. We think that the narrative would have been much worse, and the narrative that would have given them the safe space, a narrative that would have like made parents a lot more paranoid, because you realize your kid is going to be bullied in school, and that is literally what Prime Minister talked about. We think that an alternative would have been much worse. Giving them the safe space of creative geniuses helped Chester and Go flourish, because it didn't take their art as emo, random art, but rather art with a lot of value we are proud to oppose.
I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition. I will call upon the Government Whip to summarize this debate. Here.
So in this debate, I just want to jump straight to my issues, because there's a clash that seems to be coming in this debate. First, on just how does the popular portrayal of individuals with mental disorders look like? Just understand that government and opposition have different ideas on this. Opposition seems to present that the way portrayal is happening in society is that individuals like Chester Bennington, individuals like Serena Williams are coming out and speaking about the mental disorder problems that happen. Understand that this type of portrayal is something that, one, is something that they refuse to engage with our counter portrayal of individuals in the media being portrayed otherwise, but two, that their benefits are solely dependent on this being the case when that's not true. We think a portrayal driven by people who suffer and who talk about, for example, having mental illness is not the same as saying media portrays all individuals with mental disorders automatically as creative geniuses. As a matter of fact, this kind of portrayal they celebrate, where individuals come out and talk about their struggles and say, no, I'm not just this creative genius, I'm someone who is suffering, is a portrayal that is more likely to happen on our side when we de-emphasize the creative genius and we show more of the struggles, more of the idea that it's not about what I've achieved, but what I've suffered. They need to respond to that. But more than that, we think then, how then are portrayals more likely to happen in status quo? And we think there's something that has been consistent from government side, that it is media-driven, that it is selective in how it portrays individuals, and in one that it fetishizes them, that says that your respect is highly based on your contribution, on your ability to, as a matter of fact, be funny in the show, or an ability to be quirky and to be antisocial like Sheldon and Sherlock. And these types of portrayals are things they never responded to why are good, especially when we said these are the popular portrayals that happen in status quo. As a matter of fact, the previous speaker even said that we don't like portrayals by directors who don't understand mental illnesses. We don't like portrayals by individuals who show that these people can't socialize. If that's what they don't like, unfortunately, it's what the portrayal is in status quo. Essentially, their benefits only operate under a specific kind of portrayal that does not happen on their side. The things they are against are exactly what is happening in status quo when you have a popular portrayal of individuals as creative geniuses, especially when it is the dominant narrative that exists. So essentially, we think their benefits just on that ground cannot stand. Secondly then, where do we best protect individuals with mental disorders? Sit down. Because understand, this is a retrospective debate. The urgency that we need this portrayal because the dominant narrative is that everyone like sucks and we're going to bully them is untrue, precisely because we've already showed you that the whole idea that it's become a popular portrayal means that society has already shifted to, instead of viewing them as like individuals who we just bully, to individuals who we see and fetishize as freaks to wonder about and only respect based on outcome. But fine, let's engage them anyway on their points, because they told us 3 things. First is that when you have this portrayal, it's better because people can relate to you and understand that maybe if they have a mental illness, I can have one too. First, we don't think this is true because a lot of the times your relating to them is dependent on your ability to see similarities between you and them. If you, as someone who is mentally depressed or has other disorder, is not able to relate because you see the disparity in achievement, you do not get that empowerment or you do not get that relation that you want on their side. But more than that, we think this relation only happens when their struggles are visible. Sit down. If they say, I have a mental health disorder, look at all my trophies, and don't show any of these struggles, we don't think that the relation aspect can happen either way. Second thing they said, that you are able to break stereotypes. You can show that you can be productive and have depression. We don't think this is true because it shows, the popular portrayal shows that you are one of a kind, that you are rare, that you having a mental disorder and being a creative genius is something that's so rare, we don't think it's something that breaks stereotypes. But two, if it's true, then we think it leads to an even worse portrayal, even worse stereotype, where if you aren't a creative genius and you have a mental disorder, then you are a failure because you aren't living up to your potential or you aren't living up to any of the things that people expect of you. And we think that internally makes you feel worse and is more likely to actually, as a matter of fact, make you even more depressed. It's not about any of these things. Third thing they say is that it offers a safe space for individuals because they can lie back on the idea that they are creative geniuses. Why do you think this is true? It is something that is not accessible to the majority of individuals because it relies on you being a creative genius to even have this defense in the first place. When that's something that is not available to a lot of individuals, like we had already said. But last, they say it's unlikely that parents are going to have these expectations. I mean, it's TV. Obviously, they'll know it's a dramatization. Why it's not true? Because they've never explained how these expectations are created in the first place. I think individuals are naturally human, that if you constantly see it on the news, that if you see it on TV, if you see it saturated everywhere, we think at some point you are going to be affected and say, maybe my child can do it. And these expectations happen before the child gets there, or before you know you're going to have someone with a mental disorder, such that it's more likely to stick to you and be pervasive. Yes.
So then, are you okay with like banning parents from buying their children football boots because everyone's gonna expect them to be like play like Messi?
No. Okay. Comparative then. How exactly have we shown you that we are better? Because we've shown you that you can break expectations by just not having an assumption about what these kids are going to be. We think it was clear and unresponded from the speakers how, because you don't have an expectation about an outcome, you're not likely to base their self-worth on your ability to contribute. Instead, you're going to more likely withhold judgment, or you're just going to respect them by virtue of them being people, because on media, you've seen their struggles, you can empathize with it, and something that's true. But we've even characterized our worst case scenario, which they've never done with their side. When we've shown you that, fine, assuming absolutely no portrayal exists from the media or from these individuals, fine, let's say they don't speak out, at least the narrative is now driven by individuals who are like from science and medicine, one that is informed. It's not necessarily saying we're going to push you journal articles. It's we're saying the information and portrayal of these individuals driven by these institutions are far more reliable, far more safe, and far more realistic. We want to protect individuals with mental illnesses, and under a narrative that is exploitative and one we cannot control, we do not want to rely on that.
Right, thank the government whip for speech. I will call upon the opposition whip to summarize this debate. Here.
I think this debate has three issues, and I think team opposition clearly wins all of them for like multiple reasons. The first issue is about awareness in general and why we win that particular topic. So I think first of all, you essentially need to understand the level of like alternative that they want. They want portrayal through media, they want portrayal through channels, etc., etc. I think first of all, going by the whip's characterization, you can only relate to someone when there is like some level of similarity at the very first place. How does the similarity come through your portrayal? What is the incentive for the 15-year-old to watch a news documentary on mental illness? What is the incentive for the 30-year-old to go through a science journal and read about what mentally ill people suffer in the very first place? The commonality is YouTube and the song Now. The commonality is Linkin Park and the song, some particular song about mental illness, etc., etc. The point being, I think similarities in general, it always happens through a medium of media, where you talk about songs, movies, etc., etc. Your world, you tell me a lot of solutions, but you never told me why people opt into the solutions in the very first place. And hence, by default, your like model doesn't really stand. Awareness under your world doesn't happen at all in the very first place. That's the first condition. Second contextualization, they say, oh, that your world has more generalized characterizations. No, our world doesn't have more generalized characterizations. Why? Because of people, mentally ill people who've been like, described as creative geniuses, whenever some generalized movie is made about, say, some mentally ill people, people are open to criticizing about it, right? So fans of Chester Bennington, when they see a movie that completely generalizes mental illness, will call out that director, will call out that production team and tell them, right, listen, this is a wrong movie, you're belittling our hero, you're belittling his sufferings at that point in time. Under your world, these same people who haven't gone through these mental illnesses, they're the ones who make films about mentally ill people, about mental problems. And that is essentially very, very problematic as well. Your world has a lot of room for abuse, and you never really address that in the very first place, right? But then, we talked about labeling and safe spaces and why it's really, really important. Their argument to safe spaces is that, listen, to be part of a safe space or to get access to a safe space, you need to be a creative genius. But guys, that safe spaces don't work like that. Like, not every single feminist needs to be a Chimamanda Adichie to get into a safe space. People like Chimamanda Adichie create safe spaces for normal people, and then they go into the safe spaces. That's the argument we made, and you strawmanned it. Our argument was creative geniuses like Chester are the ones who create these safe spaces for this sort of people, the subculture for this sort of people, and then these people go into the subcultures and these safe spaces and operate from within them in the very first place, right? You essentially didn't listen to the argument, you strawmanned it, and that's why you lose that clash in the very first place. So going on the level of awareness, we told you how our world gives you more attention, our world gives you incentives to look into people's problems, but our world gives the ability to call out. And that's why we have real world impact. When Trump announced his plan to take away funding from mental health care within status quo, people actually revolted to it. Under your world, those same people to revolt to that would have to go through journals. At that particular point, it's safe to assume most people wouldn't have done that. Hence, we win on awareness. Second argument about expectations in general and why this is important. First of all, I think under your world, you demonize parents quite a lot. Like children who have, parents who have autistic children, literally a lot of them give up their jobs just so they can study about autism, go to doctors and go to special sessions just to care about children. For you to expect that every single parent wants their child to be a Stephen Hawking and Sheldon Cooper is extremely belittling and extremely insulting to all those parents who go through the same suffering of raising autistic child within the society. That's one. Secondly, we think if by that scenario, like children, like I don't know, you should ban having children in the very first place, because parents are always going to have expectations. Then you should not buy football boots because you want them to be a Messi. Or if you are someone, you either have to be a wrestler or a movie star. Like that's the world that they try to paint to you in the very first place. I think that's extremely problematic. That's one. Secondly, the reason why these parents don't have these sort of expectations, why, and it's better why? Because there's more relatability. Please sit down. What is the level of relatability? First of all, that relatability is one of inclusivity. Why is that important? Because number one, now these parents know that what their child goes through in the very first place. Why? Because these parents used to think, okay, let me get my child into a job. The job will automatically cure depression. Let me try to give my son a PS4 or my daughter like a new bike. At that point in time, it will cure depression because that's the symbolism of depression. Give them something like they like and it will cure automatically. But I think that is when these people know that when creative geniuses themselves, who have all the wealth in the world, themselves go through depression, it can happen to anyone. It kind of breaks the notion that depression is laziness, depression is boredom. We think it's very, very important that this notion breaks down. Under your world, when they describe the struggles, sure, they just describe the struggles. They are normal people. People won't be able to relate to that. They're like, oh, they're probably poor, that's why they're depressed. But when Chester does it, or when say someone like, I don't know, like, someone like Pink Floyd does it, it's much easier and much more difficult for you to relate to that, and that breaks down the notion of depression in general. Moving on, yeah.
So would Linkin Park still make music, or we would still get your benefit of art, even if we didn't portray him as a creative genius with a mental disorder?
I think the problem with that is it doesn't essentially make any difference under your world as well, right? You don't really tell me how under your world that essentially makes a difference. But I'll go to this in my third class as well. Just listen to this. But lastly and most importantly, we don't think under your world, essentially the world is more pluralistic to begin with, right? Because these people need to be implemented within the society, within status quo. The reason of this is why there are two main things. First of all, the US media always used lesbians as a form of joke until Ellen DeGeneres. The Bollywood media always used gay people as a joke in Bollywood films until Karan Johar, the famous gay Bollywood director, came about. The point is, this leads back to like Vidal's argument that if these individuals are not glorified as creative geniuses, they would be the butt of the jokes in all these sitcoms, in all these cinemas. And this is something that we conveniently ignored, right? They had to engage to that. And if not creative geniuses, then what? Then, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just media portrayals, but these people being the butt of these jokes, show all these characterization and all these depictions, no engagement with that. But lastly and most importantly is relatability. See, what they think is every single child in school who has a depressed friend goes to them and says that, oh, Chester sang so well, why don't you sing so well? They think that is the level of relatability they have. But no, Chester's message throughout all the songs is that, like, this is why I'm depressed. This is why I feel so bad. Chester, not even a single song says, because I'm depressed, that's why I'm a beautiful singer. Because I'm depressed, that's why every other depressed child, a depressed man or woman out there has to sing like me, right? The discussion is not the song, but the contents within the song. Like, do you really feel like someone you don't want to be? Or is it there something that really pushes you to the edge? Or are you really mentally breaking up? Or do you really struggle with your life in general? I think these are the sort of discussions that come about, right? For you to tell me that every single child will expect every single friend of theirs who suffers from depression to sing like Chester is extremely unrealistic. The contents of the song are what's discussed. The contents of the song are what's important. You can't get away by win this debate by telling me about these unrealistic expectations about children and about parents. We think we give them more realistic and more concrete harm, and that's why we win.
I thank the opposition whip speaker for the speech. I would call for the opposition reply speaker.
Okay, start. I'll break this reply speech down into narrative, sacrifices in art, and the expectations of parents and children and science, right? And I'll show you why we win on all accounts. First on narrative. I think the biggest assumption that they make is that this debate exists in a vacuum and a world where creative genius is the overarching dominant narrative that everyone opts into and everyone subscribes to. That society is molded and pushed and shaped every day by only this particular opinion and only this particular perception. It ignores the reality that creative genius is an existing counterbalance to pre-existing transgenerational perception of mental illness, depression, and how those things are perceived. We argue this with great clarity from the beginning of this speech that there are already 7 or 8 different different types of negative perceptions you have of mental illnesses and those who are mentally ill. And these exist and need to be given a counterbalance. You needed to show us how the current status quo has eroded these perceptions and created such a safe space that now we can focus on fixing our internal narrative and shift away from trying to fight the already dominant narrative that's there in society. You didn't do that, and you didn't show us why we must sacrifice our counterbalance in that particular battle. What you also never acknowledged, and I found this very dismissive, is we talked in great detail about the everyday impacts of people in ground reality because of the sacrifices you make in art. And this is extremely important. Me and Miraz both argued about in the vacuum where art is not as relatable or not as focused on these depressed people, it creates a world where this art is created with the gaze of a straight man or the gaze of someone who does not respond to this culture. Look at the difference between Wonder Woman's solo film, which was directed by a woman, and then look at Wonder Woman in the Justice League film, which was directed by a man, where every close-up is of her butt or her body because of male gaze. And women have much more rights and have much more ability to call out than those who are mentally ill, and still they suffer from the problem of gaze. So the problem of gaze is definitely a problem that exists for the mentally ill as well. Secondly, this homogenization also disrupts the creation of subcultures and safe spaces like emo music, like death metal music, like genius subculture, which are not just fancy things for celebrities to celebrate, but cultures they create which normal everyday people opt into and feel valued in and feel related in, and where parents, science, and everyone draws in for inspiration and knowledge and understanding. Why this sacrifice is worth it, they never show us, and that's extremely important. Secondly, utility of this art existing and the utility of it having variance. So for example, it's not just one-dimensional Linkin Park telling you that cutting yourself is something you can consider and you shouldn't shame yourself for doing that. It's also people like Marcus Trescotty, the England captain who I talked about, showing you that he's trying to be an athlete despite his depression. So when it exists in wide variance and wide nuance, it breaks stereotypes. It shows you that people aren't necessarily happy just because they have jobs or just because they have money. It shows you that nuance and connections matters. It tells parents that, okay, there may be another layer to my child beyond what I see, and maybe I need to look into that. Or it makes them think that, okay, things that even I thought about myself aren't necessarily something I should be shamed for. And these are nuances that we must uphold in society. In your world, where you just make it look like an everyday other occurrence, it normalizes the idea that these people don't have special needs or special nuance. At best, you generate a depiction where they're showing that they're being bullied for being something else, which shows you that, aha, they're defenseless, they need encouragement, but doesn't do beyond that to show how they can find the inspiration to go beyond that. While every other kid gets a Superman, these kids get nothing. I think that's an extremely dangerous harm. Secondly, their gateway to solving their plot holes was science will push through and bring through breakthrough. They never showed us the journey of how science does that, especially when we preemptively talk about how virality doesn't happen automatically, but needs pushes from society, needs pushes from art to manifest itself. Why would the average person opt in? Where does the interest and gravity come from if there isn't a pre-existing discussion or a pre-existing subculture where discussion is already active? That's extremely important, and they never showed us that. But rather, we showed you, in a world where these icons and arts exist and people opt into them in these subcultures, these things manifest. Lastly, they say expectations will be too much. Adi already told you, special needs parents are careful. They don't just automatically try to push their kids into being movie stars or athletes when they take measures such as sending them to the right schools and treating them a certain way. We think now, parents, kids, science, everyone has more to draw on and more gravitas around their discussion and around their problems. Please respect their nuance. Vote for this team.
Thank the opposition reply speaker to conclude this debate. I'll let call upon the government reply speaker. Thank you.
I need to go take some medicine. Is it a problem for you?
Sorry? You have
to go take some medicine. Is it a problem for you?
Like you can't stay for 4 more minutes?
I'm sure.
Opposition clearly misflashed in this debate because they wanted to create a world that and burdened government to create a world in which we had no alternative to the representation. Never mind that Prime Minister spent a good solid minute explaining what the alternative looked like. It looked like things like proper portrayal and more inclusive, nuanced portrayal. That not all of them are creative geniuses, but some of them are regular people with regular problems or with a mental illness have struggles that are clear and apparent. Those are the nuances that opposition reply wanted to come out in this debate. Never mind that they never showed why Chester Bennington's lyrics already equaled nuances of what a poor person would go through. They just assumed that because a poor person listens to that music, that poor person automatically feels like it's valid for them. But we said that a nuance of situation is something that's severely lacking when you have just a visceral portrayal of the creative geniuses that aren't the predominant situation for most people with mental illnesses. So you say that one opposition side was highly uncomparative to the proposal released to us. What did they want to respond to was the only last part, that even if of our argument, that if no other media portrayal existed, it would probably just be science. They just wanted to attack that. But we said that that's not the only thing that will happen, but we say that science is at least a more in-depth analysis of what these individuals go through versus what they said. And they said, you know, people won't understand the science behind these things, but at the same time claim that parents will go out to learn about autism of their children and constantly do this. So if parents are willing to invest to learn about the mental illness of their child, which is it really? Do we still need that celebration and that popularity that comes with creative geniuses? Or do we just need a plethora of available access to information for these parents? Which is clear that government's proposal does work in whatever world we want to operate in. So we think that what do we regret? We regret that mental illness is linked to creative geniusness, but we also regret that it is the popular narrative. What did opposition want to defend? They just wanted to defend the existence of art and the existence of media, not that it had to be creative genius, not that it had to be popular. Because if it is about link and part, we say that the lyrics of Chester Bennington would have still existed on either side of this debate, because Chester Bennington did not have to be popular to become relatable, but it's just the inherentness of his lyrics. There was no link and a lack of demonstration from opposition side where we needed it to become the most popular creative genius that ever existed. But we say that even in the comparative of Sheldon Cooper, they said that our model makes them more entertainment value. Again, we say that that isn't true, because the clear existence of the media right now is them as entertainment value. That you are only respectable in society when you have that value and when you're able to create that thing. We say that if the last thing that stands under opposition model is the only relatability that exists, because we say that awareness will always exist under our side when you have multiple forms of nuanced representation versus the existing popular attachment to just creative geniuses. We say that creative geniuses are not nuanced to the everyday lives of individuals. We say that relatability to Chester Bennington is not linked to him being a creative genius. It is not linked to the existence of that popularity. It just wants that music to be there and present. We also say that they never created why poor people will feel more legitimized about their depression when you have rich singers they can listen to. They never demonstrated why you are likely to speak out about it. Comparatively, government's model said that the nuances could mean that you don't have to be a creative genius, you don't have to be rich, but you have all these everyday struggles that they experience specifically, even without that need for an output. What are the things that they also created in this, didn't respond in this debate? Note how convenient their characterizations of society were. They said that society listens to this music and all of a sudden they automatically understand. But note how they also said that parents either in one hand won't understand depression, but will also understand like the technical details of autism, but not both. We say that these are claims that cannot be grounded in this debate and should not be credited under opposition model. We're proud to propose.
All right, thanks for this debate. Please cross the ball, shake hands, and wait outside for the results. I think it's already on because the light is on.
It's still green.
Yeah, it's green, so I think it's probably on.
But should we off it?
I think Harvard's going to time. It'll take 15 minutes. Just close the door. Can I open the door and tell them we need 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes. Thank you. Oh, yes.